find the product, write fractions in simplest forms. So just a quick preview of this. We're not going to write that as a fraction, but you could if you really wanted to. So I'm going to put a star by that to remind myself to do both and then let you decide which one you really like. So when it comes to multiplying fractions, you just go straight across. Now, I am going to take a second and remind you that when you see fractions, fractions do not mean fear, okay? They instead mean that you just need to remember that when you add and subtract, you just need a common denominator, okay? When you multiply, you just go straight across. And when you divide, you multiply the reciprocal of the second one, okay? And if you're like, wait, what? We did it. In fact, here, we're going to do it, right? But not this video. So find the product, go straight across. We get negative times negative is positive. And if you're like, wait, can this have been reduced? No, we could not have reduced that ahead of time. And in fact, we can't reduce it now. This is not divisible by 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It is divisible by 7, but not 81's not. 28 is not divisible by 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It's divisible by 14, but 81 is not. Have I convinced you that we're done? We're done. Speaking of canceling, though, I mean, you can cancel diagonally. You can cancel vertically, you can cancel diagonally, but we can't on this one. That's one reason why I knew that could not be simplified. Kind of like how I know this one cannot be simplified, right? Because 8 doesn't go into 15, 2 doesn't go into 3, and they don't go into each other diagonally. So we just end up getting negative 16 over 45, and we're done. Because 8 times 2 is 16. That's a negative. 15 times 3 is 45. Okay, now this one, what I would do is just go, oh, it's 5.9 times 9.7. And I would just multiply it back like I was in elementary school. 7 times 9 is 63. 7 times 5 is 35. 35 carry the 6 is 41. When you're done with this one, you put a 0 there because you are now multiplying technically by the tens place. 9 times 9 is 81. 9 times 5 is 45. If you need to, write this out. This is really 53. 53 like that. Now you just add 3, 2, 7, 5. And I guess it's not now you just add because now we need to factor in the decimals. Normally the decimals are right here, so we said let's bump it back. Normally it's right here, let's bump it back. That is 2 bumps, right? So what we're gonna do is the decimals normally here, we're gonna bump it twice to be 57.23. And it's positive because same signs, positive. A negative times a negative, positive. But, oh, wait, you wanted to make it a fraction. Okay, so let's do that. 5 and 9/10 times 9 and 7/10. Nothing wrong with that. Except that I don't really recommend you try multiplying a mixed number times a mixed number or a mixed number times a regular number. Anyway, so we're going to multiply 5 times 10 is 50 plus that 9. And we get 59/10. 9 times 10 is 90, plus 7 is 97/10, and we're going to multiply. Yay! What we end up getting is, oh look, we have to go over here, 97 times 59. Like, I don't know that off the top of my head, except that I technically kind of do. 97 times 59 is 5,723 divided by 100. Why 100? Because 10 times 10 is 100. And would you look at what happens when you divide by 100? it moves the decimal place twice, and we end up getting this. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, this was so much easier. It took us so much less time. Well, it took us less time because we already knew what 59 times 97 was. It was 5,723, right? This is our answer for number 33. So at this point, I am going to jump and do these right here because it's just really kind of a continuation. In fact, look, all this is just a difficulty bump in this right here. So let's zoom in. And if you're wondering, like, wait, why does this say fractions only and decimals only? I want to know, on the fractions, how do you feel if I gave you these two or this one? Do you feel 1, 2, 3, or 4? 1, 2, 3, or 4, like right there. And then right here where it says decimals only, right here, decimals only, same thing for just decimals. So let's zoom in. 5.26 times 4.5, 30. Carry the 3, 10, carry the 1, 25, 26. Throw a 0 in there because we're done with the 5. Now we're technically multiplying by tens. 6 times 4 is 24. 4 times 2 is 8. With the 2, that makes 10. 4 times 5 is 21. Our answer is still coming. We had to add all those up. We need to move the decimal 1, 2, 3 times. 1, 2, 3. 23.67. Oh no, it's 67. And then also, it is negative because we had a negative times a positive. That's negative. Ooh, right here, this might seem tricky, but we just have to convert this. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. Negative 2/3 times 5/2 times negative 3 over 1. What? That's really negative 3 over 1. We can just multiply straight across. Negative 2 times 5 is negative 10. Negative 10 times negative 3, that's positive 30. 3 times 2 is 6. 6 times 1 is still 6. The answer here, y'all, is 5. That's it. Now, if you had wanted to convert that to a decimal in order to do this, yikes. 2/3 is infinite, so it would be 0.6 repeating. 2.5 is 2.5 times 3. I mean, yikes. To do that, to get 5, no thanks. In fact, I'm going to erase it because of how gross that is, right? One more. Oh, no, it's a decimal times a decimal times a decimal. If you're paying attention, I would do this one first. Why am I allowed to do that? When it comes to PEMDAS, yes, you want to do those in order from left to right, but multiplication is commutative, which means we can switch them around. 2 times 3 is 6, but so is 3 times 2. And if you're like, well, that doesn't help us on what we're doing, 2 times 3 times 4, that is 6 times 4, which is 24. But what about 2 times 3 times 4, where you do 2 times 12 first? That's 24. What about 2 times 3 times 4, where you do 2 times 4 first, which is 8 times 3? That's 24. Notice that it didn't matter. So why am I saying any of this? Because multiplying by tens is so nice. And you're like, but that's a 20. You're right. 20 times 0.5 is 10. Okay? If you don't believe me, watch this. 20 times 0.5. 5 times 0 is 5. Sorry. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 2 is 10. We move the decimal once. We move the decimal once. Oh, look. It's 10. Now, I will say it is negative because of that negative. And now, times negative 1.6, you're just going to move the decimal one time, just like we did here. And you get positive 16. That is number 36.